You got one life, for crying out loud. You might as well just give it all you got.
The Deej, Dan Jordan.
Your daily dose of reality. Your daily dose of the Deej.
I can't believe I'm saying this, but I need my daily dose of the Deej.
I make the news. I don't watch the news. I'm a leader.
The Sales Energizer, Dan Jordan.
Listen, don't worry how to sell, baby. Worry about why people buy. And it's fun.
You don't need a 5-hour energy. All you need is the Sales Energizer.
Just when I think it's not going to be as fun as the one before, each one gets successfully better. What's the word I'm looking for? What's it going to take to get you into this car today, huh?
And now, please welcome the Sales Energizer, Dan Jordan.
Boom! That's exactly it. Do that. Let's do that. Boom! Boy, it's been so long. It's been like really 2 weeks since I've been live.
This is unbelievable.
It's unbelievable. So listen,
you know who else is unbelievable? Garen Belaney, desk rig in the house already.
Yeah, I got to put on my best Garen Belaney. Hey guys, we're gonna rock and roll right now. You know, when a Garen Belaney gets on, it's like a 1970 shock. Oh, I have a shock mount. I was about to say a shock jock, but it's a shock mount over here. Getting going.
Wow.
Big day.
Lots of shock going on.
Big day today. Yes. I've got had some issues. So this week, actually terrible news. A young boy that we knew, the worst possible thing happened. And it was totally your fault. But here's the thing. I started thinking nothing else matters. You know, if a 20-year-old meets, the worst idea, what the hell? Nothing else matters. I don't care. You know, I talk to a lot of people. They want to make sales or go into sales or start a new business or do it. And I'm like, man, just do it. Right now, there's nothing to stop you right now. You know, nothing matters. You call somebody and they don't like you or they yell at you. Who cares? You know, you offend somebody, you get offended. Who cares? It means nothing. You got another day. My dad used to say, Danny, in this country, you got your health, you have hope. And if you have hope, you have everything. And that's what I want these people to get here when they watch this show today. Nothing but hope. You were going to say something, Christo.
Yes. I tell you, when we say nothing else matters, there's one thing that matters, especially on a podcast, and that's audio. And your audio is kind of cutting in and out. So let's get that. So do me a favor, tap the QTU for me. Tap it. Okay. Let's unplug the bottom of it and plug it back in because it's cutting in and out. And so if you're watching the Deej, and like Garen Belaney from Desk Rig, and what's those emojis? Tornadoes. So success loves speed. Dan, go down into your sound settings at the bottom, the gear. Oh, okay. All right.
All here. Are we good?
I think you're good. I think the crack's gone. Yeah, it was kind of cutting in and out. So listen, we do this, Dan, on the show because we care about the great audio and the wonderful guests that are here on. And listen, this is a video, right? And as much as they like to see the beautiful face of Dan Jordan, if your audio's cutting in and out, people aren't going to stick around. Yeah, so we get it right.
That's right. You know, Garen Belaney, he sells something like that. He'll send a whole setup for you. He's really awesome with that thing. Yeah, sound is everything. Voice quality, but also what you say matters too, which is why I want to bring our guest up. Very rarely do I get to have a friend who can come up and I'm grateful enough that he's willing to come on this kind of show, but more importantly, to share massive amounts of wisdom. And so I'm really psyched for my friend over here, AK Singh. Come on down.
Boom! Let's go.
That's what I'm talking. Boy, you see, he had the arms in the air quick. There are some people that when they come on, you can just see them still raising. But, that's the thing about you, AK. Always prepared.
You've got to put in the time.
That's it. So, AK, I thought long and hard on the question that most people want to find out about you. And so I wrote it down and I was prepared. And here's the thing: for how many years have we known each other?
Since 2014.
Oh my gosh, he actually remembers that long. That 2014. My gosh, and this is 2022 already. Montekia, you have gotten so old. All right, so all these years I called you AK, even though your name is what is K? What part is it? Like LL Cool J or you LL Bean? Like what's the K?
It's my middle name. My full name is Aviral Kumar Singh, but trying to say Aviral and trying to get people to say that, you always end up with Aviral, all kinds of fun things. I started my career, Deej, in the hospitality industry, and I was a front desk manager at one point in the 759-room hotel. I had thousands of people interactions every day. I did not have time to tell people how to say my name. So I took the Aviral, I took the Kumar, and on one point I said, you know what, this is just going to be AK, and we are going to be okay with it.
Boom!
Love it.
That's
Love it.
very
Love it.
good.
Love it.
How come you've never told that story?
It is a speech that is still not completely written because I've gone through a few iterations.
Oh, okay. Very excited. All right. Well, listen, I wanted to hear, because I really do want to hear your story. So when I first met you, you were working for
I was
for
one of the
toilet
aspiring titans of toilet paper.
Yes.
The aspiring titan of toilet paper. I love that.
I was working for Georgia Pacific in 2014. I had just made director. And at that point, I knew at some point I'd find myself on stage staring at anywhere from 500 to 1,000 sets of eyes at a national sales meeting on stage. And I knew I had to push myself to do better at that forum. That was my driving force. And I was so fortunate to find the Toastmasters Club that both of us have been involved with for so long, right in my backyard here in the East Coast.
That's crazy. That's something that salespeople and people just don't realize how important to your career it is, the ability to be able to speak coherently, a complete sentence without saying all over the place. And almost as important, Chris Stone, is having good sound that doesn't cut out.
That's right. That's right.
and so, but most people don't do. So when so what did you do? What was your, was there ever a time where you had to give that speech that you were talking about? Or did you had to present in front of large groups?
I did. A few years later, I did find myself up on that stage and delivering news about a new product innovation. And Deej, I made it so dramatic. People had no idea what hit them. And afterwards, several people came up to me and said that was the best that they had seen at one of the national sales meetings. But here's what kills me, Deej. You know how many people approached me after that event to say, hey, AK, you knocked my socks off, or that was amazing delivery, and would you mind taking some time to mentor me or give me some guidance as to how I can get better?
How many?
Whoa.
Ooh, as we say in Yiddish, goonish.
50, endless compliments after the thing. 0 people reached out. And that just reminds you how many people are stuck in that inertia of not wanting to invest time to improve something they desperately need to invest in.
Well, it can actually earn you more money.
Yeah.
Whether it earns the money or not, you left everything on the mat. You engaged people, you connected with people. What's more energizing than that versus being another one of those yahoos who's on the stage while the audience is checking their smartphone for email?
Yeah, and reading their PowerPoint.
Oh yes. Yeah. Another favorite.
Yeah. Well, and it kind of goes back to this. It's like, there's all this information that's available to us. There's podcasts like this, but there's also all kinds of free information that the three of us didn't have 10 years ago, but now it's available. Yet we find that still most people don't want to put in the work it takes to be successful. Do you think that's why no one was coming up to you, that they didn't want to get better at what you were doing?
I think there can be realistically a factor of intimidation. Mm-hmm. In fact, with speakers like Deej, when you initially see him, right, firing on all cylinders, and you're a newbie, that can be intimidating, but this is where, again, your character shows itself. If you are comfortable being uncomfortable, you are going to make a whole lot more progress. But unfortunately, many of us cling to our comfort zones. We just once we are there, we like to be there. And this is one where people say, I don't know if somebody surveyed it recently, the fear of death being lesser than the fear of public speaking. So it can be daunting.
Well, I always think that makes no sense. I look at somebody, I mean, that the person, in the coffin is feeling better than the person who's given the eulogy. That just doesn't make sense. I mean, there's no reason to be afraid of that. So what do you recommend to people to do? What's the first thing that somebody can do?
I think the first piece is to change your mindset, to chase the fears. I think the biggest growth that I have seen in my life is when I have confronted those fears. And after you do that, after you develop a certain level of self-awareness, that usually propels you towards action. But without reflection, without having that higher level of self-awareness, you don't get started with anything.
Well, okay, yeah, but let's say someone's okay. I realize it too. So speaking, you're saying it's like the key thing that somebody can do to improve their career. It's like it's a quick thing just to go ahead, and it doesn't cost anything. You just go, you go ahead and do it. So, okay, I took the plunge. I decided I want to do it. Now what's my first step? What's my action step?
I think what Chris was talking about is so on point. We can so easily access an insane amount of content just on YouTube. You can start in safe areas like that if you're not ready to have that human interaction. But ultimately, my recommendation is always find those people who do it well, develop a mentor. And once you have that relationship, that will pay immeasurable dividends. And join a public speaking club. Find one. It doesn't take much time to do that. And just getting those jitters out and finding those right people, building that ecosystem propels you forward very fast.
Well, Cargo Margo has something to say.
Yeah, Margo's joining us on LinkedIn. And so everybody that's watching, whether you're on LinkedIn or any of the other tubes, please join us in the chat. We have a great conversation here with AK and the Deej and Cargo Margo. She loves LinkedIn. You'll find very motivated people that build a solid community. And so like you're talking about, AK, like LinkedIn is a good spot, right? I think though, what people are looking at is they're looking at this fire hose of information. They don't know how to take a sip in the right places, right? So what maybe are some suggestions where people might be able to start, like maybe some favorites or things that inspire you on these platforms?
Some of the things are just swirling around us, and we have to reach out and grab them. Every opportunity that presents itself. If there's a birthday party for a friend, if you're going to give a simple toast at an evening dinner, all of those little opportunities give you the ability to practice your craft in varying degrees of risk type settings without necessarily having to go stretch too much. Aiming for the stars and the 1,000+ people audiences and whatnot, that can come. That can always come. But you can start with the low-hanging fruit. The other piece I would say is LinkedIn, as you brought up. So let's talk about LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a wonderful platform because your risk of being trolled is minimal. You're not going to see a bunch of professionals just completely douse you.
You will get hit up in the DMs, though. You will get they'll hit you up in the DMs. We do get those,
and then that's fine. But you're not going to be publicly trolled. Use LinkedIn, and finding your voice often can start with finding your voice when you put it down in black and white. Write a simple LinkedIn article, find the intonation, find how your thoughts come together. And as you progress on that journey, then you can maybe experiment with video, then you can experiment with audio. It's all about just taking those meaningful steps one after the other.
I love that.
You know, you talk about DMs. What a bunch of pansies. You can't handle someone just writing something to you. And if you don't want to answer, don't answer. Who cares? Margo Cargo couldn't care less if somebody did that to her. Here's the thing. Right now, Chris, you talked about it. We're doing a podcast. I can't believe you say, AK, you gave a presentation and nobody came up to you. They said, hey, how great it is, but nobody came up to you and says, can you help me? Or how can I do that? Or anything like that. We do shows like this every single week. I got people that comment, that call me all the time, every single week. I'm the most accessible person on the planet. It's like me and Jesus. I mean, we're just, anybody can reach me just by calling. I'll answer my own phone. You know how many people ask to be on this show? Very close to Goonish, very close to nothing. And so it's available to everyone. You're right. You just have to take that first step. The beautiful thing about it is it's always been like this. Yeah. There's a little philosophy that I follow, and that is that most people won't. And so most people won't click. Most people won't call. Most people won't fill out the form. Most people won't come. Most people won't, try something new. Most people won't. And so if you're the one that does, if you're that person that does, if you're at I was in the same situation as you, AK. I'm at a funeral, and they say, would anybody like to speak, to say something? And nobody wants to get up. I was at a funeral once. I didn't even know the person. I was there for my wife. I didn't even know who they were. And nobody was. So I said, this is a disgrace. I got up and talked, and just said something. And after it, people came up to me, oh, that was so nice. Thank you so much. I'm like, who are you? It doesn't even, but it was respect for that person. So you could stand above the crowd by doing the smallest little thing. Because as Chris Stone said so aptly, most people aren't willing to do the simple things that makes sales or speaking or life easy.
No, DJ, I think
if there was a mic, I got to drop a mic somewhere. Hold on. I'll screw the thing up.
Well, AK, I think too, you put in the work over the years. The first time you set foot on a stage, you weren't doing what you were doing. It took, you had to go through the steps. Nobody goes to the gym and comes back shredded, right? You've got to put in the work and understand and overnight. Do you feel like on a lot of these platforms that everybody feels like they have, like, here's the easy button. Like, here, your algorithm is telling you, do these 5 things and you'll make 6 figures in 3 months. Like all of these things that it's like, that's, here's what I did to become a millionaire. In, those kinds of things don't really speak to the amount of work it took to get there.
You are touching on a deep insight. I think that instant gratification driven culture that we have cultivated around ourselves is very much to blame. And we do find that people just want it like that, right? Like, give me that little 3-step, 7 hacks, that kind of stuff. Most things in life, if you want to be meaningfully good at them, they take time. I'm a big fan of Malcolm Gladwell, Outliers. Many other books, many other studies have proven to us it takes those thousands of hours of practice before you get good. The worst thing is, until you put in that time and you don't begin to understand what you're good at, you're limiting yourself, because early on in our careers, most things kind of seem like a chore because we are not really good at many things. But after you do it again and again and again, you realize, oh, this is something I'm good at. So it also creates a level of self-awareness that allows you then to further invest in that and be awesome. And that is what we ultimately want to do, is not get lost in the sea of mediocrity.
Oh, gosh.
Who doesn't want to be awesome?
That's a nightmare. That's my biggest fear. My biggest fear is not to be a loser. Being a loser, at least you tried something. My biggest fear is being mediocre. I moved away from home. I moved like in New Jersey, in my town, because my biggest fear is being born, live, and then grow up, and then settle down in the same place where you are. By the way, I'm not saying that it's bad. If anybody else out there did that,
everyone's tuning out now. Dan, good job.
For the Dig, it was just that was impossible. That fear of being mediocre, not remembered. One of the more inspiring things for me is like classical music. I just love classical music, not because I'm the hoity-toity, but it's because, Bach, that was 400 years ago. You could watch any movie. There's some Bach or Beethoven. Oh, 400. You know what people are going to be talking about Chris Stone in 400 years? I mean, nothing.
Dan Jordan live?
Yeah. It's just
You bet.
gone. So it's really just take a step and get out there and play. And you just even if you fail, here's something. They have I remember who was the, Chris Stone, by the way, you say you don't get shredded right away. So on Monday, I decided to have a new diet: sardines and smoothie. That's it. I have to start. I need more protein. So just not at the same time.
You don't put sardines in the smoothie. You did that on Amazon one time.
I did do that. Yeah, that was disgusting. But so sardine. And last night, you say, if you're wondering why I feel so energized right now, last night, liver and onions and sardines. I know. I am a finely tuned machine. I have no pain right now. Something, you ever have no weather? Like you walk outside and it's you don't feel anything. It's the perfect weather. I go, that's how my body is right now. I got no pains. I'm moving forward, full of energy. It's everything's working. Sardines and liver. How did we get on that topic?
You took us there. I just didn't know people actually chose to eat sardines and liver. I always thought it was forced upon them in some way, shape, or form.
I got to lose some weight because here, AK, you talked about opportunities that happen when you speak. So I sold this product to a company who rents boats. And so they rent boats and they have 100 boats and all that stuff. And so a lot of people who have never driven a boat before go out on their boats. And so I say part of the service is what you do is you can put a video in there of, how to run the boat, the safety features of the boats. And the guy says to me, "Can you do that?" And I said, "Damn straight I can do that." He goes, "Yeah, because I don't want to get on film." I said, "All right, anyway, flying me out to Utah. I'm going to spend a week there at his resort, and I'm going to be the spokesman for Deer Creek, resort or whatever in the boat rentals." Little crazy opportunities happen because somebody peeked their head above the rest and they said, "I'm willing to do it."
I give so much credit to those people who do that, though, because in any of these instances, and you were just talking about your diet, so let's go there. You transitioned. You were in a place and you transitioned from that place. And I think there are always 3 steps required for that. First, you have to feel some restless discontent, not be happy with generally where you are. But a lot of people have that and then they go nowhere. And that's because they don't see that vision of the better future state. There's the human action model, something I picked up at Georgia Pacific, but these 3 steps, having that restless discontent, then having the vision for the better state and knowing how to get to that promised land. Between one of these 3 steps, if the link is broken, you don't get there. When you change your diet, you went through all 3 of those things. Similarly, when that person asked you to be their spokesperson, yes, they did not do it themselves, but they understood that they had a need. They understood what good would look like, and they found that you would be the better path to get them there. That's beautiful.
Look at that. Hey, this is supposed to be for your ego, not mine. All right. So, back, enough about me. Let's talk about you. What do you think of my hair? No, okay. So now here's the
You're asking me. Yes. Nice one.
So
did you learn that one at Toastmasters?
So AK, you Georgia Pacific. So you're no longer at Georgia Pacific. You moved on from there. Did those skills assist in your finding a better and new position?
No, absolutely.
Tell us about that.
You bet. I had my eye on the healthcare industry for the longest time. There's a deeper meaning. Working for Hershey's and selling those candy bars who do transform people's moments during the day. There's a deep emotional connection with candy. That was good. Waking up in the morning and knowing that somebody is going to put that food on that lovely Dixie paper plate and it's not going to bulge over. All of that is good. But ultimately, I always had to remind myself I was doing that for the people. I would show up, I would get out of bed because of the people. And healthcare gives you the opportunity to do more meaningful things. So I went to work for a local healthcare system. And within the first few months, one of my charters was make us more differentiated, make us stand out from this, again, sea of mediocrity that is healthcare. Everybody talking about white lab coats and these physicians who look down at you seriously saying, I'm going to cure you, fella. Right. And so to get out of that whole morass. So I come in, a lot of consumer work, which I love. We did all kinds of focus groups. We did online surveys, many rounds. We finally get to that place. Right. But now this is a system, health system with 20,000 plus people engaged with it. Right. How do you drive that transformation? How do you shift that mindset about this is how we thought we looked at ourselves and who we were. And now this is where we are going to be. This time, it was a bigger stage. And the first big change meeting was 1,400 people sitting in the audience.
Monte Kia.
Right. And one of the compliments I got after that meeting was, I was telling somebody sitting next to me, this is AK Super Bowl and he's killing it. and I'll take that compliment every day. But again, the human connections made that day. That set the tone for how much people opened up their arms to receive me whenever I entered any conversation, whether it was branding, marketing related or not.
Yes, you're that guy. The person in the front of the room is the one that's remembered. Instead of selling, and when I say selling, every conversation, a transaction is taking place. There's a buyer and a seller. Usually it's just an idea. Sometimes it's a product, but the one with the most energy generally wins. And here you are giving your presentation, selling your brand. Instead of 1-to-1, 1 to 1,400. I mean, that's a dream come true, and it just opens things up. And it's all for the ability of speaking. So you did that, and you help with them. How has it helped in your personal life?
I think we always have to find the why for ourselves.
Did you see how like serious and sad he got? How did it help in your personal life? Oh yeah, that thing. Oh yeah. Now we're screwed.
Not being loved as a child. Just kidding. Just kidding. Just kidding.
Well, you know what I love? So AK, I love you weren't born here, right? In America? No. So people where English is a second language, and I think is English a second language for you, or am I just making this up?
It is.
Okay, yeah. Have a much fuller vocabulary than just a regular ho-hum guy like me. I don't know that I've ever used the word morass before, but I shall from now on.
No, it's very gracious and humble of you, and your humility always shows because you're always that person with the student mindset. And I've appreciated that about you, Deej. But to come back to the personal piece, it's all about the why. And I think if for anybody, the why is simply very selfish things like, oh, I'm going to get a promotion out of this, and I might be recognized more. And so with that fame, I can advance my agenda. Those things are only going to go so far. Ultimately, I think, and many of the folks that we know and revere, Deej, in this space, from the Jim Dawsons of the world to the many mentors that have shaped us, those people always had a deeper why. And for me, the why was, again, this human connection piece. It's always been about improving myself and improving others around me. And from that standpoint, if I can be a role model, if I can set an example for people, oh my God, the value we can create, because it kills me every time I see these surveys. We have X millions of meetings every year on this planet. And of those meetings, 60% of the time, people are absolutely disengaged. Come on. This is value that is being taken away from humanity because we are not being able to do something as simple as open our mouths and communicate with each other and actually hear and listen to and understand what we are saying. This is what it's about. So when I think about it at a personal level, that's what gets me fired up.
Oh, that's good. Now, you have kids, right? What do you got? Tell me your family life.
I have two boys, married to my college sweetheart, 23 years this year in October. And
Awesome.
the older one is 14. The younger one is 8. The teenager won't give me the time of day right now, but we're working on that.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's all. And do you still like your wife?
I was wondering if you would go there. Ask me at my 25th anniversary.
Okay, very good. I love it. Well, no, that's great. This is actually a real question. How do your kids, as opposed to the other fake ones I've been asking this whole time, but how do your kids react to this type of, schooling and mentoring that you've been giving them? Is it, that's just my dad, or is any of it actually, visibly sinking in?
No, it is one of the most satisfying outcomes, I think, is seeing the effect it has on them, knowingly or unknowingly, consciously or unconsciously. So my 8-year-old, earlier this year, he says to me, "Dad, I love what you're doing with your content, and I want to be on your channel." And he has no idea that LinkedIn, I have a relatively small audience compared to many of the greats out there. And my YouTube channel, called Bald Wisdom, has 25 subscribers. So I'm no hotshot. But what I do, this kid latched onto that. And so initially I thought, you know what kind of parent would I be? I post his content on LinkedIn and people are like, "Oh, AK is exploiting his 8-year-old now to get some likes." So there's that tension there, right? But this kid, he was so earnest and he was so sincere in his ask. And he started, DJ, I'm not kidding you. He started a PowerPoint presentation, took a template, right? Kid's never been in PowerPoint all his life, right? And he starts putting in some things related to what we had talked about a little while back, which was uncontrolled desires lead to extreme unhappiness.
Mhm.
And he created some content. Now, some of it, again, 8-year-old, a little misguided, but with minimal direction, he finished that. And then we sat down together in the same space that I'm standing in right now, and we recorded some VOs, and I put that content out. That is a formative experience that's going to stay with that child probably for the rest of his life, that he did that with his father. And whether it helps accomplish nothing, that those moments that we shared doing that, I know I'm going to take that to my deathbed. So very
That's
satisfying.
awesome.
Yeah, no, they want to play. They want to get involved. One of the finest. I have little sayings and colloquialisms. Ooh, what do you think of that?
Deegisms.
Yeah, deegisms. And every once in a while, when my kids were actually in the house with me and with their friends, and I'd hear them kind of reciting my words to these other kids, which was the best one was when some gal was telling my son Matthew that she's going to be a lawyer. He wasn't going to go to college. She was going to be a lawyer and all this stuff. And Matthew looked at it, he said, "Great, listen, when you're done, I'll hire you." Which was just awesome business thing. All right, cool. So you've done that, but now you're not at that healthcare company anymore.
No, I have transitioned full-time into consulting, and there were several factors that drove me there. One of the pieces that we've all seen and have been impacted with all around us is what's going on with the macro trends around data, analytics, AI. All of these pieces have seemed like jargon. And for many of us, we felt like, that's way over there. Somebody in science must be dealing with that stuff. Well, guess what? This is now washing over every single thing. No matter what field you're in, no matter what you do, you're going to deal with this stuff. And that drove me to ponder what might be a space where I might learn the fastest about it. And that brought me into the consulting world. And it has been fascinating because just talking to people about their problems, just talking to people about what it is that drives them, what it is that they're struggling with, that leads to fruitful conversations around, okay, how do we go solve this problem? And can technology, can data, can AI, can many of those things play a role, especially in brand and marketing, which historically has been considered this fluff, soft science. It has become a hard science now. It is more data-driven than most people can ever imagine. And so I've really enjoyed having those conversations. I've really enjoyed being a consultant, adding value for those people in those spaces.
Well, in what type of value? Like who would hire you, or who would hire your company?
At any point, if somebody is having an issue, just articulating what their brand is about, and after they have done that foundational work with us, hopefully, and they start building the marketing ecosystem around when they're looking at, hey, how do I acquire patients, for example, if I'm in healthcare? How do I build that funnel? If those people were to reach out, we can show them in the most cost-efficient and highly effective way how to build those funnels, how to get those patients, and how to be themselves unapologetically.
And do you automate that process?
Depending on what their needs are, we have many partners who can help them with that.
Okay, so you do the whole kind of strategy, the high level operations type of idea. And then
you have to start there. You have to start there. And so many times people have thought about it, they've stewed in those things, but they cannot articulate it. Until you can articulate it, you're dead in the water.
For what size company?
Can be any size. I've worked with mid-tier to larger companies at this point, and even smaller ones in some cases. And at times I find myself doing things that I never thought I'd be doing as part of this. I was leading a workshop at one point in a setting where you had people, mostly from the sales environment, talking more strategically about their brand than any brand person would. And those types of things then lead to other interactions and other conversations, opening up different lines of business.
All right. Well, speak more specifically. I'm interested in this because I agree with you. I'm going to verbalize a little bit right now to give you time to think, because I agree with you that salespeople are on the front lines and they're dealing with their customers. So the brand is very easy to kind of figure out for us. You just ask the customer, what do you think about us? When I say my name, what do you think about when you, from our industry, tell me what you think our industry does, and just understand where they are. And so you can know what they're buying versus what you're selling. That makes perfect sense to me. But do you have a specific example of something like that taking place?
So let's talk about, we'll go back to the lovely toilet paper setting, right?
Okay.
Everybody.
You always, they see, Christone, you didn't, I told you with AK, he's always going to go back to the toilet paper.
Not just any toilet paper, the lovely toilet paper.
Yeah, the lovely.
Yes.
It's a product everybody uses. All of us know Charmin is top dog, right? And they just dominate that space. They dominate the category, whether you like those bears or you hate them bears.
You see, wait, I got to interrupt you for a second because I did not know that. You know, that's assumption.
I'm a Cottonelle guy.
Are you?
You know, I'm a Cottonelle guy.
Have you guys ever tried a bidet?
Yeah.
Okay, that's a different.
No.
Yes.
No. That is the French program that you feature now and then. You're confusing it with this one.
Oh, that's right. Okay. All right. So back to the Charmin.
So here you are, right? They're the top dog. And the brand that I was working on was Quilted Northern. Now, Quilted Northern is an age-old brand, and it actually offers a value proposition that is way superior than Charmin in many ways. But it has not done a good job of building its equity over time, right? And our salespeople who would hear that from, say, the Walmart buyer or the Target buyer or the Kroger buyer, and they would come back and say, you know what, you got this one proposition over here. This thing has 3 plies. So they say, okay, I at least see some differentiation. But this other thing over here, they have no idea why this exists. Can you please explain this? And then we would take all the marketing research and a lot of the cut segmentation data and all of those things and create these beautiful PowerPoint slides, which in an intellectual and logical way lay out why this proposition is actually differentiated. And they would come back and say, no. So the humbling moment that appears after these interactions, especially those salespeople, to your point, who are the tip of the spear in many of these conversations, that immediately grounds you. Some of that self-reflection and holding a mirror to ourselves led to some phenomenal work there, where they genuinely started embracing the eco and sustainable space, where a lot of that bamboo toilet paper, which would leave people with chafed bottoms and all kinds of fun stuff, they started to come up with an alternative for that. So it is It is not a category a lot of people think about, but there can be a lot of deep thinking that happens when that sales feedback, that feedback from the field comes in and is genuinely embraced.
I love it. I love how he started out with, everyone needs it. And it's so true. It's like, there's a lot of, as a salesperson, you think everyone needs whatever you're selling. You gotta think like that. But in this case, like, it's 100% true. It's like, my favorite book to read, my little boys, when they were growing up, was Everyone Poops. There's a book. There's a book. It's called Everyone Poops, and of course, it's great for for children. It's a good thing we're not on Amazon right now. We would get yanked.
Poop is just a funny word.
But it's interesting. Yeah, I'm more of a Cottonelle person, and they've got some flushable wipes. It's good for the closing ceremony.
All right,
Dan, you were saying something?
The closing ceremony.
I love that.
I have a friend who calls it making ice cream. All right, so trivia. What is the remember the guy on the commercials for Charmin, and he used to squeeze it like this? Of course, they can't do that.
Mr. Whipple.
I was about to say, what's his name? But of course, you nailed it because you have
Mr. Whipple.
Yeah. Yeah. You didn't know Mr. Whipple, AK, did you?
Oh, I saw so many of his reels. That was the immersion, right? When you start in the toilet paper business, you got to go back and watch all those ads.
Yeah,
oh,
he probably has
really?
got 50-page PowerPoint decks and white papers on
gosh.
Mr. Whipple.
Analyzing how his wispy hair were orchestrated to show the fluffiness in Charmin.
So that was the whole thing. The whole thing was it was goofy. And he would squeeze it and soft, and it was Mr. Whipple. That was the whole thing, and that just got people hooked. So Great Northern never came up with something, did they?
No, I think the quilters that at one point were part of the franchise were the closest that they got. But I started with that funny category. To come back to healthcare, think about, again, something that is as deeply emotional and connected to someone. There are few things you can think of that can beat healthcare, right? You're genuinely talking about lives. Many meetings in many companies, you would say, it's not brain surgery. Now I found myself in meetings with neurosurgeons, right? But one of the things that is an epidemic in healthcare is the focus on self. So one of the things that we had talked about from a branding standpoint when I started at Wellstar was, how do we get towards that patient centricity in messaging? And when you look at the audit of all the advertising out there, and again, those white coats looking down, what's the focus on? It's them. And that is where I celebrate now. Slowly that is beginning to shift. And you are seeing now, from a human connection standpoint, things like what Grady is doing downtown. I wouldn't be here without Grady. Maybe there could be more humility there because it's still paying homage to Grady, but the focus is on the patient. You always talk about these so many times, the focus on who you're selling to, what their problems are, what solutions do they need, come from that. And that customer centricity, that patient centricity, it is astounding to me that even in today's day and age, that is not a foregone conclusion. So many organizations, small, big, and large, are not wired that way. Selling with their self-serving agenda, that gets you nowhere.
Yes, yeah, and it's so, and especially in the software space too. It's which maybe some clients that you're working with right now, very difficult not to, when you're demonstrating a software program, just to be talking about the software. I mean, they care so little about that, and yet you spend the whole time doing it. It's it's difficult, but you got to stay with the challenge in the healthcare field, as I see it. And this is just coming from a layman, so I don't know what's going on. But the challenge is the customers, generally in any business, the customer is the one who pays. So in that scenario, the customer of the doctor is not the patient, it's their boss. And the customer of that boss, the hospital itself, is the insurance companies, because they're who's paying. So the challenge is the patient is ancillary to the person who's paying. So how, in that situation, when a third party's doing it. How do you overcome that?
And this is where I think a lot of the debates happen, right? Do we really even need to do any of this stuff? Do we need a brand? Do we need marketing? Or can we just work with these entities and make sure that that feeds the funnel? But that's not the case. And increasingly, what's going to happen is the choice and the control that consumers have, that is going to be higher. Now, some of this is driven by regulation. So, for example, there was a time when most people working in a corporation would get medical care for pretty much a sum. Everything was covered by their plans. But as regulation has come into the space, what we now is most prevalent, right, is the high deductible plan, which leaves you with out-of-pocket expenses up to $4,000, $8,000 sometimes before the insurance plan is going to kick in anything. So all they do is they've negotiated the pricing down for you, but until you meet that family deductible of $8,000 or something, they're not putting in a penny. So in reality, then, you are actually paying for it.
Mm-hmm.
Now that slowly that realization is dawning upon a lot of healthcare consumers, you're starting to see that change. And it's fascinating to see the ingrained behaviors here. When we do orthodontia work, right, braces, everybody needs braces for their kids at some point. You shop around, right, for that. The shopping behavior is common. And yet, when you go to your doctor and they say, hey, get an x-ray, you go to probably the most expensive x-ray thing that they might have right there in their office versus going on an app or searching online for the cheapest x-ray around.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, an x-ray is an x-ray, an MRI is an MRI. These are standard things, right? But slowly those consumer behaviors are going to shift. As those shift, as price shopping begins to happen, as the consumer journeys shift where now they are going on all these websites and checking out all these details, those healthcare systems who are presenting that information in a meaningful way will have an edge. They'll drive preference. So all kinds of fascinating stuff happening. It's a rapidly transforming space going very far from where we've been for decades.
Yeah, and I love it because, you know, I remember during the whole healthcare debate, and there still is with social things and all that. And I'm, you know, where I stand on that. I'm like, pay for it yourself. But in my argument at the time was healthcare prices keep on rising, except with LASIK eye care. With LASIK, because insurance doesn't pay for it, you had to pay for it yourself. Competition happens, prices go down. At the beginning, it was thousands and thousands of dollars, and to do it now, it's you know, it's like instead of getting glasses, you can get that.
It's big time.
You know, and so it you know, competition works with everything, including healthcare. Insurance is necessary, but I like that idea of that shopping around. I remember years and years ago, my grandmother. Grammy, who was just terrific. Do you have a Grammy, AK?
She passed in 1989.
Yeah, I mean, mine passed too. But I mean, do you have those fond memories? You hear his voice change, Chris Stone? I talked about his family. He's like, oh, here we go. I talked about his grandmother, and he's like, yes. You know, he's still. It's like eating, you know,
it's manna from heaven.
Yeah, it's like the gravy on the roast beef. Oh yeah, Grammy. And so Grammy brought up, you know, the very poor and all that stuff. So she was told to get something from the doctor when she was, of course, at Social Security age or what have you. And so the doctor said she had to do something, and she said, "Well, how much is it?" And he says, "What do you care?" Just like right. What do you care? And you know, it just flipped off. You know what? You know, he said, "You're not paying for it. What do you care?" And it's like everything's double and triple and quadruple. So, wonderful. So you're figuring out a way with the companies that you work with to make it customer focused.
Absolutely. Customer centricity, patient centricity, everything is driving us there. And technology is playing such a big role in this because, as we all know, many of those things that would take you endless amounts of hours now at your fingertips. We talked about Amazon a couple of times today, right? And price shopping. That whole go to the store, see what it costs on Amazon, and then decide. These kinds of things were just the beginning. This is going to go to another level.
Where do you think it goes? That's interesting.
I think one of the pieces that technology is going to enable is a lot more care in the environment that you prefer. Nobody ever should have to die in a hospital. it is not the place to say goodbye to this world, to your family and whatnot. And there's a great book around mortality and all the issues in this space and why people end up dying in hospitals by an author, Atul Gawande. And
What's the name of the book?
Last name, so author's name is Gawande, and the book is Being Mortal. If I'm if I'm not missing a word.
Watch the magic that happens very shortly. But what does it talk about?
It talks about the fact that we have just completely outsourced certain things that we should have never outsourced, including this ability to reason for ourselves. What is the marginal value of increasing our life when you are at the end of life? That's it. Wonderful book. I urge everybody to read it. So how does technology now start impacting all this? If you are now getting care, even for some advanced diseases at home versus in the hospital, that completely changes the dynamic. That completely changes how your family is still able to enjoy your warmth, and you are able to enjoy those emotional connections without just now suddenly being isolated. So a lot of work that is going on in that space requires extreme patient centricity, because now this is not about me talking about what's the most efficient way to create this hospital room and get bodies in and out of there. This is now about how do I get care to you where you are. Changes the ballgame completely.
Yeah, that's big stuff there. Boy, you take a light and airy show and get all serious on me here. But that's actually, those actually life and death stuff is kind of the real thing. Actually, we started the show that way, didn't we? Look at that. Remember about
recall?
Yes, that's right. Yeah. Look at this. That's so. AK, what's next for you then? What's he say? I'm always been impressed with you. Came from another country, and you seem to have thoroughly embraced your life here, but still maintain such a strong connection. Do you still have people who live back home?
Yes, my parents do live in Delhi, and I go back and forth as they are aging to make sure that they're in a good place, and I'm taking care of the things that they do need to take care of. But indeed, you are absolutely right on about me embracing what I've found in this amazing country. And it is a shame now that many days when I see the US bashing happening, that as an immigrant, I have to remind people of all the beautiful things that we take for granted right here in the US of A, that you can only dream about in many other places. And for whoever, the disputers, the naysayers and whatnot, I just say this: go to any country, look at the line in front of the consulates and the embassies and see where more people are lined up to get their visas. That tells you which country is number one.
Well, that's a great way to go. So, AK, what's the name of your company right now?
So my company is Curae Consulting. But to your question, as far as what I'm doing next, I'm actually now going to be working as part of an incredible firm that has built its DNA on solving problems on the pharmaceutical side. So I've started in this healthcare space, right? And we talked about the payers, the insurance plans. One of the biggest entities in this space are the pharmaceutical companies. And the associated issues are just mind-boggling, and they're so challenging and fun. And technology is shaping a lot of these pieces, including one of the most critical pieces, which is R&D, discovery and development, and how technology is now trying to get that cost down so that those drugs can come to market in a more cost-efficient fashion. So some life-changing, life-saving stuff that is going to be happening there. The company that I have now joined is ZS Associates. And ZS Associates, this is their bread and butter. So I'm excited to start that journey and transitioning into this new space. And if you haven't figured this out about me, going from industry to industry, it is a learning that in so many ways keeps me alive. So I'm excited to now jump into this vast ocean and see what I can learn. And hopefully with some of the experiences I have, bring a little bit more value to some of these spaces.
Oh, well, that's such a nice thing to say. AK, it's such a pleasure to talk to you. Doesn't he have a good vocabulary, Chris Stone?
Yeah.
when you speak, it's like music. You know,
No.
everything just kind of glides. It's very nice. It's very good. And we managed to talk about healthcare and the pharmaceutical
Toilet paper.
Yes.
without talking about the China virus once. So I thought it was very good that we managed to do that whole thing. So I appreciate you coming on. I know we tried to get this going.
My
but
pleasure.
Traveling around in the world. Chris Stone, is he not amazing? You see how you just got to mention it and stuff comes left and right. Always gets better every single week. And for those of you watching here, just remember, it just doesn't end. If you're not growing, you're shrinking. If you're not climbing, you're sliding. You're never all set. You never can get to the point where you're just done learning. When you're done, there's always a new horizon out there for you to go towards. And if you have that in your sights, you never get old. You guys are awesome. You're the best. I'm the Deej. Let's go get them today.